so gorgeous people. Oh my gosh, we've got quite a crowd here today, as I knew we would, because Carol Monda, I mean, come on. So, everyone, we have the amazing, the wonderful, the spectacular, the glittering Carol Monda. I don't have to say, like, do the normal introduction thing because, like, everyone loves you. And when I first started narrating, everyone was like, oh, well, if you get coaching with Carol. And, like, it's beyond like a job thing, the kind of love these people have for you. It's like a family love these people have for you, Carol. I don't know what you do, but you do something and you do it spectacularly. So I'm going to just read because we've got some new people on the call that aren't normal. I mean, you're normal, all of you, obviously, but not regular viewers. Um, no boring questions. Honestly, if you can find it on Google, then let's do a secret Google search. But quirky questions are always more than welcome. If you've got weird, quirky questions, throw them in the chat box and I will put them through to Carol throughout the call. If I haven't asked her your question immediately, don't worry, it's coming. I see them all and I fit it in. And if you and that's pretty much it. But if you do want to say something to Carol, don't worry, I do send her the chat after the call, so she won't miss out on anything. So, Carol, 10-year-old Carol.
Yeah.
Draw a picture of your 10-year-old Carol, 10-year-old Carol's life for me.
Wow. Wow, you hit right into the pinpoint pressure area of my youth. No, so my dad left my mom and we had just moved to a new community, a lake community in this like old restored log cabin basically, but it was by then shingled and pine ceilings. It was a beautiful little like a bungalow.
Right.
And it was just my mom and me. I had my brother and sister are 10 and 7 years older. And so it was just my mom and me. And she always said that we grew up together. So sweet. And I
But
think
did this happen when you were 10? Because when you're 10, even just normal things feel traumatic. This must have felt like life shifting.
yeah, it definitely felt life shifting. But I also know that oh, this is hard. Hard to say uh, without again thinking. We were talking earlier about like I hope my so and so doesn't hear this, but so my father and I get along really really well, but I didn't think that he was good for her, and so in a weird way, although it was traumatic, it was also sort of a new sense of like a new lease on life. A new leaf was being turned over, and I felt like she was going to be better off and that I got to have her all to myself, frankly.
Were
But
you quite grown up for a 10-year-old? You sounded kind of grown up for it. Was that because you had older brothers and sisters?
I think so, yeah. And also because I my mom started taking me to acting school every Saturday when I was 7 until I graduated high school, every weekend except for summer. Um, and so we had these, 3-hour classes, and before that and after it, we had, my mom and I had these great rides to and from New York. It was like an hour. So it was this whole day of, I don't know, self-realization and bonding with my mom, but also coming alive as an actor and learning what that was. And it was just a fascinating thing. The first day of acting school, I remember the teacher said, "So we're going to have a picnic, and who wants a hot dog?" And I was like, "Okay." So she passed these invisible hot dogs around, and then like, "Does somebody need mustard?" You know, and it took me, until the relish to like figure out, oh, we're not getting hot dogs. But no, it didn't take that long. But that kind of thing was mind blowing for me. The idea of playing with something, even though you're a kid, you do imaginary things, but that was, I don't know, to have such a construct of that, like this is a class about the imagination. That
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, I think I did grow up a little.
And that's visualization right there. That's it in a nutshell. Has that helped you in other areas of life other than, do you find that you practice that and exercise those visualization muscles in other
Every,
areas of life?
yes, I absolutely do. Certainly before I teach a class, I, I kind of talk myself into a place of grounding, but also a place of imagining. It's not, it doesn't work for me to, the whole emperor has no clothes thing.
Yeah.
Never worked for me. In fact, it's kind of like, yeah. But the idea of they're my friends, this is family, everybody wants to learn and or share. And so see, here it is again, the
Yeah, yeah,
and
that but I remember I had this, I should probably stop referring to it as the corporate job from hell, but I managed a very large team for a very corporate, very large company, and I had to hold 19 appraisals every year. And towards the end of that job, I used to, before I would go into each appraisal, no matter who they were, because I was determined to treat everyone very fairly, I would try to find whatever it was I loved about that person before I went in to meet with them, so that that was first and foremost in my mind. I will confess, in the last year, that became much more difficult because there wasn't much, but I still managed to the very end to find something. At one girl, it was she always had really pretty nails. Literally, that was all I could
it.
get. But you're right. It's because if I've got like begrudging feelings about you, and then I'm gonna meet you, even if I don't ever say it, you're gonna know.
I think so. I think that's true for most people.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
subconsciously.
exactly, absolutely that.
Yeah,
But I think even from a, just like just above the sub, that we kind of just can feel from people's energy and even their apparently their body temperature and their the electrical system fires differently when you're happy versus when you're
ooh,
mad versus, yeah. And like even when people touch hands, it's there's the whole thermography thing. If they were to do a thing of our hands, it would be like all of a sudden there would be sparks and colors um and so it's not just the heat, it's not just that, it is that partly, but it also is supposed to be about understanding that we really do have energy no matter what we're doing or saying or thinking or
yeah.
even doing nothing. We still um you know are active in our, this is how I'm assessing at the moment, my entire universe.
That's you've just that bit about the electrical, that is amazing because wow. Because when I was in, well, no, I think that's a final piece in something I've been, because when I was in school, I did this thing where like I loved life. When you're a teenager, you don't care what anyone thinks anymore. You just like, I'm gorgeous. I'm a teenager. I've finally got a chest. Life is wonderful. And so I would smile at the first like 5 or 7 people I saw every day, no matter who they were. And I would do this thing where like, right, I changed my name and lied to everyone about my name. And I was like, I'm Lisa now. And I would do that, right? Put Lisa out, and Lisa was up. Lisa loved everyone. She smiled. She was on at school, right? Haven't done that in a long time. And I was listening to somebody on a podcast, and they said, oh, you're a person that has a very down energy. And I thought, oh my God, with narrating. So now when I narrate, because when you listen to some of your very first books, they might be horrific, they might have weird things in them, but most narrators start going, I'm a narrator. Oh
Yeah.
my God, what is and that, you know, but when you've done 8,000 books, not so much. I'm trying. What you said, don't you think those electrical, I know strictly not electrical, but don't you think that comes through and people listening sense it, even if they don't know they do, the connection?
Yes, honestly, I am a believer in that, because it is true, we are these systems, and even though we're all one, um,
Yeah,
at any given time, I'm sure you've experienced this, like the same book, even 2 days apart, can feel like a very different experience. It might be a chore instead of a joy, or,
yeah,
from one day to the next, even just based on, did I sleep? What did I eat? Am I thinking about something else that's happening in my life? That sort of stuff. But you're right. I think just being able to sort of drop that level of self-consciousness, or the monkey chatter is what
yeah,
I phrase
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But
And
you, in terms of being down in energy, that's fascinating to me because you are so full of energy. But I think your voice has a grounded lower sound. I think that's something we have in common.
see, I'm on a Joe call. I'm full of energy because I'm giving every ounce of energy I have to you
Yes,
because
that's
I'm
totally.
on. But when I'm in the booth, I am now because I'm very conscious. The last few months, I've been very conscious of this. But I think for a while, I struggled with health problems. So
Mhm.
I was in the booth. My brain was, I have to do this best job I possibly can do, and that's not that push energy, try too hard energy. We
Yes,
all have our different, I think, our different people we show up as, right?
yes,
Different times.
I think that's very true. And if one of those people, you know, is for whatever reason putting pressure on themselves, then, even the fact that we tense a muscle, let alone many of them, when we're, especially if we're like, for some reason, like if it's an audition, especially, I hear this from a lot of students too, but this happens to me as well, that, you know, you might really want this job, and it takes a lot of, zenning to remember that if I really want this job, then shut up, because I'm going to be relaying that craving, that neediness, that
Yeah,
nervousness, um, and it's funny, back to the muscles, that it's of course going to also tense your throat. It's going to, kind of cut off some flow in terms of the mask, and the vibrations. All of this stuff gets affected just by one little negative thought.
yeah.
Talk about the electrical system. I mean, the synapses are firing all the time with, yes, good affirmation, positive affirmation versus, no, I will affirm that you're an ass. The stuff that we do to ourselves.
So high school. So you've got this whole secret other life. You're going out and acting on the weekends. Were you kind of lording it over all of them when you went to normal school on the weekdays? I would be.
No, I don't know why I didn't. I guess I mean, I was not embarrassed of it by any means. I was really proud of it, and it was really one of the most special times of my entire youth. But I guess I felt like I was so spoiled that I didn't want to make people feel bad. Other than that, you're probably right. They probably would have been like, "Ugh, such a drama queen. Of course she's going to acting school, or
But
something."
do you know what you just said? Spoiled, or it sounds like, because I was listening to something the other day, the two things that you need, and I can never remember the word he used, was gratitude and um, a feeling of control. So I can't
Hmm.
remember the word he used, but you have control over your life, over what's going on. So there's a word, there's a very simple word. If anyone can think of it, please put it in the chat because it's driving me nuts. But those are the two things, the two key elements to being a happy, well-balanced person: a sense of gratitude for where you are and what you're doing in your life, and that you have control over it. And you had that then, didn't you? Because you were doing something that, as a very young child, you sensed that you were doing something you loved and that you were lucky,
Mm.
and you were cognizant enough to not want to rub it in people's faces. That's a massive gift.
Well, that was totally my mom. She was always like, such a humble person, but also she really drilled into us this idea of, you know, being kind and being like just thinking of other people and how are they going to be affected by X or Y behavior or statement or what have you. Yeah.
Okay, so you've done the acting, you've gone to high school. Did you have a blip at any point along the way where things felt like they were going off the rails?
Oh yes. Prior to that, like, so fast forward a little bit from 10, my parents got back together and my
Wow.
dad gotten a job in Virginia, and we were in Jersey at this time. And so, you know, I'm 12, I have braces. I just in acting school at the end of each semester, um, people come to see the stuff, and there was a manager and she wanted to sign me. I mean, it was like, it could not have been a worse juxtaposition of like, yes, no, I can't, you know,
Oh,
just terrible. So I really felt like I went down there thinking, well, my life is ruined because I'm not going to be signed with that manager.
it's
I'm not going to be an actress. Yes, exactly. Um, and then he's probably going to screw it up or something. And in fact, like 6 months later, we moved back to that same home. My mom had the presence of mind to rent the place that we had gotten on our own. But so, yeah, that was a big blip. And I did experience for the first time serious depression, and that was at 12. And
wow.
by the time I got home, even though that was an amazing, you know, fix in many ways, somehow that depression gate opened, and I have had trouble ever since.
Because
Yeah.
I think, and that's a very precarious age, isn't it? Because physically,
Yeah, absolutely. That
your whole
tween.
being is changing.
Yes, yes,
And also physically at that age, your whole being is changing. And then the other time it hits women is before menopause, because physically, and not menopause, before menopause, like
right.
10 years before, because
Yes,
physically your whole being is changing.
yes.
And people they don't like, I think, give it the credence that it deserves, those 2 points in life.
Yeah, you know, there are studies that say that is it Perry? Is Perry before?
Yeah.
Like we're
Yeah.
in
I
between.
think, yeah, perimenopause.
Um, that that many times there's irritability, and you know, instead a lot of people translate that as, you know, she just gets bitchy as she gets older, which is a fascinating thing that you know, everybody acknowledges when people go through changes of any kind, like puberty for boys,
Yeah.
right? The boys, it's so clear that they're going through a complete hormonal crossroads, you know,
Yeah.
new phase. um, and I think that's what happens for girls, you know, before their periods and before
But
they
the
start.
world we want to pretend that it's just the body, because it's scary for us to think that you're literally changing, like mentally, who you feel you are. And I can say it because I've talked to so many friends about this recently, because most of my friends are around this age where, like, suddenly, and I said this in an earlier call, like, I haven't ticked certain boxes I was supposed to tick, or I didn't tick the right boxes, and and what are they going to think of me? And like, and it's weird because I've always fought against that my whole life. So then one day it was like, oh, wait a minute. They're still wanting me to do things their way. Who are these people? And you get to another side, and I'm saying this like I'm 90 years old, you guys, but literally I've had an epiphany. You get to this side where you're like, oh, love, you with the boxes. Go. Just That's why women are bitchy, because they don't care.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? You
yes,
just don't care anymore. You're just like, wow,
yes,
I feel sorry for you having to like exercise that much.
yes, exactly, to care that much,
Yeah.
because if we put all that energy that we spend, that we use in caring about what people think,
Yeah.
into becoming better or learning a new, you know, hobby or whatever, how much better would that be? And it's such a simple idea. It's just that you know, nearly impossible, especially in the West, to do, I think, you know. But it's especially funny for me to hear that from you, because I would think that you wouldn't get that kind of feedback, you know.
As in what? As
Like
in,
like that you're different, or you've changed, or you know,
oh,
because you're
because I was always a weirdo. Like always a weirdo. And it was, so I was used to like being the one in corporate jobs that was always like, I, if I was super great at what I did, they would let me get away with wearing rhinestones and glitter when everyone else was in beige suits. Barely. They didn't like me for it, but they would barely let me. But as an audiobook narrator, what happens is I was confronted with, everyone says, be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. But you also still need to book jobs. And everyone else is also trying to be like everyone else. And everyone else is very seriously worried about social media. So, yes, we're all saying be yourself, but you're not, when you are yourself, it's like, no, not that self. Could you? That's not the self I meant. And I did struggle with that when I became a narrator. It was the biggest, best lesson I ever learned in my life, I think.
yeah,
Yeah, because now I think I really am myself, and I'm not a young girl trying to like put a finger up to the world because I'm going to be myself anyway. Now I just don't even notice the
yeah,
world. And
yeah.
because I'll tell you, I did an audition when I was very new narrator, and I'd come from an acting background, so I wasn't like without confidence auditioning. I booked a lot of auditions, and I found the book had come out, and I hadn't searched it or anything, but I'd like heard the narrator that got the book. And I can't remember the name of the book, to be fair. And I didn't know who the narrator was at this point. I was very new. And her name was Carol Monda. And all joking aside,
Oh my God,
in the sample on the book, it was everything. And it was like a 4-minute sample on an audiobook. I watched a series. Okay, I watched an entire series in 2 nights because it's a thriller. And Jenna Coleman, who was in Doctor Who, would have never really thought much about,
yes,
was so,
you're freaking me out, but go
Oh,
ahead.
she was so good. She was so good. I could not look away from the TV. I couldn't go to sleep. I couldn't move.
Yes.
So, do you remember the last person that had too many wrinkles or was no, but I remember that Carol Monda sample. And I remember the hell out of that. Jenna Coleman, and Killing Eve, Jody something. There were parts where I was like, wow, those moments.
Right. They inspired, right? But they also like, I don't know if it's the one where her husband is cheating on her, the Jenna Coleman.
Yes. Have you seen it?
I mean, you kind of freaked me out because I literally last night stopped. I mean, it ended from my viewing, which also took about 2 days.
Wait, you watched it? You finished it last night? I did too.
Oh,
I think maybe it was, I think it was last night because I messaged Joanna going, you gotta watch this.
Oh yeah, she would love that. Yes.
Yeah.
But you are right. And she's great in she did Victoria.
Yeah, she's good. She's great.
Very good.
Fun. But this
were amazing. But yeah, this was because it was so pared down, really. The other ones, she's glamorous in some way, even if it's, the girlfriend of the drug addict who's, or drug dealer or so. I can't remember the one.
There was one, she lost her baby. It was really good. But this one, she acted the hell out. She did what Carol Monda did in that sample, what Johnny Heller did in the Sean Inman book, that like I didn't sleep for a week because all I did was listen to that audiobook.
God.
You know what I mean? It's things like that. I want to do something like that. I want to keep somebody up one night. And
maybe you do. That's the thing. I remember George Goodell used to go to libraries for recorded books to talk about, the business and answer questions. And one of the, older tea clutch ladies said, "I go to bed with you every night." And she she really was, she didn't even think about how she was wording that, but it was really true. She literally, like, she couldn't go to sleep unless she heard him
It's
speak.
funny enough, but saying that to him.
It is funny. I know, right? And can you imagine I can only imagine his face. I mean, even when he told the story, his face still was doing a little bit of the.
Yeah, those moments, and you talk about gratitude, that it's a bit unreal, not in a weird stalkery way, I promise, but that like I can just like send an email to Carol Monda and actually sit here and have an interesting call with you. Do you know what I mean? That's,
God,
I
yeah.
think, aside from the social media, we have access to some brilliant genius. I mean, he'll kill me probably for mentioning this, but there was a guy that worked at Positron. He doesn't any longer, Ryan,
Yes.
and he's in Brazil now, and he
Oh.
writes.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'll say this here, for he is like the next Bukowski. I mean, the man is next. And I met him through the audiobook world as an editor. I think he was an editor at Dion, and he worked it. But the people that we have access to, look around you, everyone, at your social media. The people that you have access to, we take for granted every day.
Yes.
This is Carol Monda.
Oh my God. It's
But
just amazing that you would say that, because it's so all relative, because even hearing you say that, I'm not letting it completely in, because we're all just, impressed with each other for so many different reasons and in so many different ways, that to me it's more like what you said earlier, that this whole community is loving and uplifting and supportive, and
yeah.
so it's funny to feel as though in any way I'm being feted like that,
But it's because of but what I admire is this flat out talent. I couldn't care less about the status. I mean,
mhm, yes,
good for
I
people
agree.
with the status. It's great. Barbara Rosenblatt, I saw a clip of her in Orange is the New Black. I was like, you showed 73 bits of emotion just
Uh-huh.
by locking your car door.
Uh-huh. I know, she really was chillingly great.
Right. and
Yes.
and so it's those moments, it feels like you're touching greatness. Do
Yeah.
you feel like if I could, and I think we'll spend our whole lives trying to like, because
We
isn't that what being creative is? You spend your whole life trying to like corner that muse.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think um there are those times that sometimes, especially when we're in the midst of working a lot, that you really do feel like I am, what is the solitude book, 100 Years of Solitude, that it
Oh,
feels like, that this is my life now, 100 years of solitude in the booth, and it's a complete vacuum, and there's no, give and take like there is on stage, as you know.
yeah.
um, but but the idea of being able to just focus in on the actual work, that's what's so, I think, actually helpful for exactly what you're talking about. The talent can actually come out in a much more pure, clean, dimensional way if you really are just in that moment on your own in this vacuum.
And out of all them, like Jenna Coleman can do a million movies, but if you just get that one, and like we do a million books, but if you just get that, just get that. So tell me about a time in your journey as an actress, as a coach, as a narrator, where you feel that you've taken a leap in understanding something about, at the risk of sounding precious, about your craft. But
Oh,
do you see what I'm saying? Where you feel that you've like what I said with the energy, like where you've come to a better understanding of something.
yes. Oh, yes. So
Is
that
there a
would
time?
Yeah, that would be maybe year 3 into my narration. I, having trained in the theater, was used to articulation, to such a degree that finally, someone at one of the big houses said, uh, you are really kind of stiff. And I said, oh, I guess maybe I'm just trying too hard. And he said, I think that's part of it, but I think it's also you have to undo your training. So the long and short of it was I just felt this click where really what it was all about was just relaxing, just like shut up the noise and really just be in, sit back as it were.
Yeah.
Even though you can't do that because the mic is, probably going to pick up some air between you. But for real,
Yeah.
I really felt this like shift. It happened once during a monologue in college too, where I was acting and then suddenly, I don't know, something just took over and I felt like I could practically hear the steady steeds that Juliet was talking about, the ponies, the horses. I mean, the idea of truly surrendering to the moment. I know that sounds woo-woo, but that's, I think, what it's about is how different it feels and how much less work it is to just
Go up.
be in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful moment for me, and one that I still have to remind myself sometimes about, because I still think you've got any training is very hard to undo, but the more you can chip away at it and develop new habits like not having any, could be
So when you're coaching, do you find that there are things that you wish you could get your students to understand that you feel that you can say, but they might not completely feel, that you wish you could kind of put in their brain? So do you know what I mean?
Sure, I think I do. I think particularly the idea of authenticity, which is basically what we've just been talking about.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't really think of it that way, but yeah, if you're really in the moment and you're really seeing the things that you're describing and all of that, then of course you're you know you're sort of being real. And so sometimes I find it difficult. One of the things I love about coaching so much is that everybody has a different love language. Everyone,
Mm.
you can get to them in different ways, and you have to sort of learn each other's language in order, I think, for a really optimal, connection and collaboration. But I do find that sometimes I'm at a loss for the words. For a few different kinds of people to really get them to let go, to take risks, and to just open it up, just unzip and go. That's probably the biggest challenge, but it's also the biggest challenge. It's great when finally there is something that is an epiphany for them, or an aha moment, or oh my God, I didn't die. When I just
Right.
really went for it. So
But
that's
do you think that anyone can reach that moment? Or do you think that it's some people are innately unable to cross that barrier? Or is it a matter of when the student's ready?
mm.
For some reason, I want to say when the student's ready, the horse will follow to the water, but I'm pretty sure that's not the right.
Oh no, that's the right one.
But do you understand what I'm saying? Do you think that I wonder about I had somebody on saying that they had started narrating and they went to a coach, and the coach just said, I don't think this is for you. And then they were going to give up, but it meant a lot to them because they had given up their first career. And this was like something they thought they could do and so then they went to Johnny Heller, and Johnny worked with them. And then there was one moment, I think they were saying this was like the best moment of their career, the highlight, when Johnny said, "Oh my God, I really believe you." Like, I think, in old Johnny way, the guy he was playing a creepo pervert. And Johnny said, "I wouldn't let you anywhere near my kid," or something. And it was the highlight. But so I'm wondering if there are people that are just, maybe they're just, talent is a thing, and you run across that and there's no way through that, or if there's a way through for everyone if they want it enough.
Oh, that's such a great question and such a hard one to parse, I think, because um, I do think that there is something innate in talent. I think that, there's a predilection and or just an instinct and maybe just the wiring back to that. But so I do think you need a je ne sais quoi in a sense, but I also do think that you can learn a lot that that can actually expand you as a person, and that if you didn't go for it, it would never have been teased out of you and then would never blossom. And so I do think that more often than not, when you think someone is quote unquote hopeless, or that they really are in the wrong business, which they, have said to Pacino, all the way to, Brando, then I don't know, I lost my train, but I guess my main point is that a lot of people, if they're told no, they just go away and become a plumber or whatever. And if they have the right Johnny Heller in their lives, then something can really open up, not just for their jobs and their art and their craft, but for their confidence and their sense of self,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And so what you're saying, tell me if I'm getting this wrong, is that the journey of learning to be a great narrator actor we're learning to be human, right? Because they're taking the next step.
Exactly right.
Do you know how cool that is?
I
Do you know how totally, I'm going to cry on my own call, but do you know how profound that is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we work so hard to think about all of the moving
Yeah.
parts, but really it's just this part. It's just this right here.
Yeah.
So it's
Because we want to capture the muse. That's what we're striving for, isn't it? That's, in a nutshell, what we're all doing. And why it matters so much is because it's who we are as human beings.
Yes,
And then
exactly.
the more vulnerable and real we are as human beings, the people that don't have the courage to put themselves out there or face that can listen at night when they're going to sleep.
Yeah.
And we're doing it for them.
That's it. That's right. Exactly. And don't we feel like we belong here? Like when you finally do click into that.
Yeah.
Doesn't it feel so right that as a person you have, I know the word is overused, but you've arrived in a sense. You've, or at least you've gotten in. You've let yourself into your own door that has been bolted for whatever reasons, whatever fears and whatever, resistances you've had.
And it brings you, isn't it true that the characters can bring you into your own life and out of your own life? Because I recently did a book, and horrible things in August, because my mother passed away, and but this is not, because it happens to everyone in the entire world, right? But how you go for different kinds of grief in different people, you deal with it differently. And I had this book come up, and it was about a paranoid person that was slowly losing their sanity and feeling like they were being gaslit. And that was the most profound, amazing character I've ever had the privilege to do. And literally to the point of just loving, because it took me away from my life for a little while. And I know they say that's not, an actor isn't supposed to act to escape their life, but sometimes living someone else's, it took me away. You know what I mean? But then there are other times where you get the book at just the time that something horrible happens and you get a book on that. Have you had that happen?
Yes,
so many times, huh?
Yeah, it more often than you would ever imagine, I think. And maybe it's that when we're especially attuned to a particular thing in our personal lives, whether it's a crossroads or a well, a crossroads is certainly death is a crossroad,
Yeah.
but that you know, you don't even think that you're going to come up with something that could in any way trigger that. But sometimes it's the smallest thing that can remind you of this thing that you're going through in your actual life, you know.
But do you feel stronger? Because it's not an easy choice, is it? Being a narrator, and you have connection with a lot of people, and you do a lot of things as an actress. And I know I see new narrators start, and they're kind of shocked at like the ups and the downs and the rejection and what it takes. And do you feel like a more full, strong human being because of all the ups and downs and the path you've chosen?
In my life in general,
Yeah, as a
or
human
as an
being.
artist? Yes, absolutely. I mean, I do think that that whole thing about, you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger
Yeah.
is a cliche for a reason. You know, that there's something universal about that each new challenge and tragedy that befalls you uh, absolutely calls upon you a new part of yourself that okay, let's go back to construction where we have to reestablish the foundation here or add a few extra bricks, or suddenly I have, you know, I have the ability to move on when it happened I didn't think I could ever, you know, live again.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff can be so mind blowing and so growth inducing, you
And
know.
you never, unfortunately, you never get to realize it until you've already gone through it all. It'd be nice. Okay, so we've talked about the heavy stuff. Tell me about the moment that you love the most in your narrating career, like the
Oh,
highlight, the moment of like the most joy in your narrating career.
wow, that's so hard. But I would say the thing that keeps coming to me is anytime an author asks for me, that I've made it. I mean, I feel like that's the pinnacle of success. I mean, how to entrust your baby to someone and to actually, you know, there was one person who said, you know, I heard your voice as I was writing, and I just it, you know, I could die happy knowing that if one person really has that connection with you and brings you into their creativity, you know, their creative process, um, that's just such a lucky place to be.
And because you
So,
admire them so much, it's like,
yes,
yeah,
yes, that's true. That's true. And even, you know, sometimes if you don't even love the book, I mean, most of the times that people have asked, I've loved the book. But once in a while, it's like, you know, it's sort of a good writer with a formulaic romance or whatever. Um, but but you still feel like it's so nice that they thought of you or heard you in their minds, you know.
so what's next? Do you have big dreams? If I could wave a magic wand for you right now and
Mm.
make anything come true, no bars, no limits. You've got all this power. You've you've got a sound career, you've got years of acting, you've gone through the hard knocks and the obstacles, and you've seen other people's pain and you've mirrored it back for them. If I could wave a magic wand and give you your heart's desire right now, what would it be?
Well, okay, this sounds so crazy, but I've been wanting to read the news for a really long time. I would love to just be like a on a podcast or on radio news or something. I would love to, you
Be
know,
it like an anchor woman.
kind of, yes. I mean, less the just the headlines and more just like I would love to be a Leslie Stahl, or someone who like goes in and really investigates a particular issue for a long enough period that it becomes like a little mini, a
You
little,
should create a podcast. You'd be amazing.
wow.
You'd have an audience in a sec. You could totally do that. That's not even like dream scenario. You could do that tomorrow.
I don't know. I don't know how you get. So here's the other part of me that is not evolved, in my opinion. The marketing, the how do you get people to buy?
Yeah. Ignore all that. Just start the thing first. I mean, because if we thought about the marketing, none of us would ever have become narrators, would we?
I don't
Seriously.
know. I
If you
feel
think
like most people are so good at it, or not most people, but so many people are so good at it.
you
But
learn when you start. If a writer thought about the marketing, they would never write their first words.
that's true.
Seriously. Those
That
are
is,
marketers. There are some people that approach it just for marketing. In my opinion, those are business people, and that's great. There's a place in the world for business people. You're an artist. Start a podcast. Oh my God, you would be terrific. You would. And one of my favorite podcasts takes a lot of it's like diet, but they take different things and they debunk them. And two of them, and they're just hysterical. It's a
good.
maintenance phase. They're hysterical, and they debunk all the, I'm not going to say. I don't want to get sued. I don't know. You can get sued.
Sure,
But, like
sure.
famous diets, and they go through like the facts. They do a little research, and they debunk it on the whole show. And oh my God, I listen to 1,000 zillion podcasts, and you would be terrific, and you could do it tomorrow.
Oh my God, thank you. Can you please be my manager? No.
Yeah, seriously, we'll chat.
Okay, let's chat.
I think you'd
The
be
other
amazing.
thing. Oh, thank
Now,
you.
I've got questions from audience members. I don't want to miss. So, oh
Aw,
gosh, everyone's talked a lot, but I want to catch the questions. Um, Jody, okay. Oh, and Barbara had to leave before we asked her questions, but I'm going to ask them anyway, and Barbara can watch it on catch up. What are you most
Barbara.
proud of in Barbara Hensley? What are you
Oh,
most proud? Barbara's the queen of quirky questions. What
she's
are you
good.
the most proud of in life?
Oh, God. My friend who was dying of AIDS asked me to MC his funeral. That was the most.
Wow.
Yeah, that was such an honor, and we worked on it together. I mean, how lucky is that he actually got to plan, the color theme, and he wanted me to wear a caftan like Barbara. um, you know, um, so we had laughs and cries during that whole planning session, and I think he would have been happy.
I don't think I could have done it. I couldn't have done it. I think I would have been too afraid of how hard it would have been.
Yeah, it was not easy, but one of the good things is that he had an entire playlist, and so there were times to sit back while each song played, and then we had like a little thing I had people come up and speak, or do one of his favorite poems, or just do an anecdotal story about, I remember one of them was that he was a smoker, and he was on a flight, and it was just at the time that they were about to ban, or had just banned smoking. And this was so Robert, but the flight attendant said, "You have to put out your cigarette." And he said, I don't see any signs, and when I bought the ticket it was for a smoking seat, and so I'm going to smoke. And the story was told in a much funnier way, but that kind of thing, it made it easier to conduct this otherwise unbelievably somber, and tragic experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Wow.
I'm very proud of that. I feel so honored that he asked me to do that.
Yeah. And that you did it, that you were there as a
Yeah,
friend, because that's not a small thing. I don't think I could deal with it.
yeah. I
Um,
think,
sorry.
if you love, I think you could, if you love someone enough, and they need you,
I don't know. I don't do emotions.
oh no.
Okay.
Amazing. Huh.
What's this? This is again from Barbara. What's the scariest thing that ever happened to you?
Well, literally, I was almost robbed, and who knows what it. Um, but thankfully, he I was just walking home. It was in DC. I was just walking home from the Elephant Man and on Capitol Hill, and I just had my program and an umbrella. I didn't have any money on me or anything, but I noticed this guy when I was leaving the theater, and then when I finally was turning the corner to where my place was, I saw him again, and I was like, that's weird. I didn't see him on the way. So he was like ducking through back alleys and stuff, I guess. Yeah. So he came up behind me, put his hand over my mouth and said, don't speak. So I screamed instead of speaking. And that.
And then handed him the program and the umbrella.
I did. Exactly right. I mean, he literally stole my program and ran off. So I guess for people who have experienced much more scary things,
But it could go either way, those things. So just because something had a happy ending doesn't mean at that moment you don't know.
You don't know. That's right.
Yeah.
And certainly, abuse, there has been abuse in my life, strangers trying to assault me. And that's incredibly scary and vulnerable, and you don't know what's going to happen, but you do everything you can. It's that same thing we talked about, how you kind of grow strength from negative experience. And so that.
Yeah, it makes you. Okay, so this brings us to the next question from Stephanie. And feel free to answer this as deeply or not deeply as you feel comfortable answering it. You mentioned that depression has affected you since childhood. Has it ever been a major challenge in your career?
Yes, I would say so. That there are days, mental health days. Everybody talks about, I'm going to take a mental health day. There are a lot of those days that I want to just pull the covers over, and on occasion I have. So, I haven't shown up that day for someone, for something. Not all that often, but it happens where I just can't surmount the the reality of it all, because my headspace is so not in, doing a book. I mean, because, sometimes it is important to remember that this is not brain surgery and that life is going on around you. And if something in particular is really pulling you away, or pulling you into a place of, the need for healing or just silence, that you have to allow it sometimes. I mean, I think you can't indulge it. But.
I was listening to another podcast, but they were talking about executive function, and they were saying for somebody perhaps that has depression, something as simple as taking a shower, and she went through all the steps. You have to get up. It was like mind-boggling. It was like 30 minutes going through the steps of like just getting to the shower, getting in the shower, getting out of the shower, dealing with and then you have to face yourself in the mirror, and then you have to listen to the stories about what, who you are in the mirror, and then you have to, and I can't remember what they all are because I've never experienced that with the showers. I mean, I have experienced that with not wanting to leave the house since COVID, whereas I got worried that it might be a problem.
Yeah, really.
Still trying to work my way through it. But yeah, it became because I walked along 3 hours a day most of my life since COVID. I never had it, but I got a fear of it, of people. And I stopped wanting to leave. So we all have our things, but you are right. You can't take it from somebody that does go into record no matter what, nothing's stopping me. Sometimes I shouldn't have.
No, thank you for saying that, because I never really have gone past that guilt of, you sort of failed the world today.
No, you failed the world when you go in and try to do it and do a less than best job. I always do a wonderful job on all my published books, by the way.
Yes, you do.
On YouTube for 60 years. But then how have you succeeded if you're then sicker? And how have you succeeded if you force through work and stop leaving the house and then wake up one day and you can't leave the house because you're too scared?
Yeah, I think that's something that does open up this whole other subject that COVID has brought on in
Yeah.
all of us, on some level in all of us. We have experienced solitude in a whole new way in the last 4 years. And so to me, I wasn't afraid to leave the house. I was just, when lockdown stopped, I was like, all right, I'll go out. I'll put on my shoes. And it wasn't fear. It was more just like, this was such a safe cocoon, and I could
Yeah.
do anything. I could see people on
You're
Zoom.
right. My house is gorgeous. I have burly clothes. I've got glitter. My house is like 1990s punk brothel. Like, seriously, who would want to leave? If you saw my house, you wouldn't want to leave either. But I was afraid. My mother was very sick. I grew up with like a health anxious mother, and I thought I was fat because I always think I'm either fat or like I'm working to be thin. And suddenly the news came out and said, oh, fat people are going to die if they get COVID. I'm saying what the news said. You guys don't quote me on this. I don't want to trigger anyone, but that did something to my brain, saying if I'm near a single person and they breathe on me, I won't make it. So I won't leave the house.
God,
It's
that's just terrifying.
Yeah.
You poor thing.
I mean, now I'm not afraid, but now I'm just lazy.
Yeah, that's another thing I think that it's
I've had 3 years in my bordello.
Yes, I mean, now I want to go visit your bordello because it sounds fantastic. The description you had was really great. I want to see the picture. But yeah, I think at some point, as you said earlier, you at least started to say that it got so bad for a time that you really thought maybe there's a problem here. And
Yeah.
I do think that therapy is a really important thing in general if life is going great, but certainly with such a massive and shape-shifting, what's the word? The plates shifted.
Tectonic shift.
Tectonic shift. Thank you.
First time ever the word actually came to me.
Oh, but yes, I mean, to me, this was a global,
Yeah.
So I do think that, especially now, even if we're coping very well, that it's never a bad idea to do some post-mortem on,
Yeah.
what did you go through? What were some of the fears that came up that never had been there before? Are there, intrusive thoughts? Are you more lazy? Are you,
And honor where we are, right? Because just because the whole world, I saw that with the Audis. I worked at that car place once for a survival job. So now I have like the hardest time
I know,
pronouncing. But I saw it with the reactions afterwards when a few people got COVID, and then people were like, nobody should ever have left the house. And some people were so angry. And then some people were, and there were so many emotions, and there were a lot of emotions there anyway. But I just think the world was like, oh, it's over, move on. And then, but we got to honor where we are right now. We can't just like jump back and go, nothing happened.
Right, exactly. And I think a lot of people are, feeling safe enough to do that. And to me, in some ways, it's a bit of self-delusion, because even though we're not having to wear masks, or, have 6 feet apart, I just think, there are 2 new variants just this year. It's only 9 months, and you've got 2 new species variants, that are making people sick. So even though it's not killing people like the original one, it's still an issue, and it certainly is not a fun illness to have, no matter how bad or minor it is.
Yeah, we all get to decide for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that could stand for it. So going back to, I don't know how I took us down this route. Maybe we should edit part of this out. We don't want to be
too much of a bummer.
Harry says, Carol, you would be terrific on a podcast. Harry did radio work long before narrating and had to unlearn so many verbal vocal habits. Carol, you would be terrific. And Sarah says, magic wand equals do it. And it would be perfection, podcast perfection. Hetty said it would be so great.
Oh my
Now
God.
they're just going on about how much they love you. So, oh,
Oh,
April wants to know, what is your favorite way to recharge yourself?
oh, wow. I should have an immediate answer to that. Ice water. I know ice is not good for us, but unless I'm in the booth, I won't have ice. But
Why isn't ice good for us?
oh, it constricts our vocal cords, and so the suppleness of our voices is compromised. And also, anything cold makes things stiff, so it's going to tighten a little bit the
But
vocal.
just not in the booth, right? Other times we can
Right,
have.
it's not
Okay,
every other time. I just happen to love ice.
I know I do too.
So I'll do that, and I really love tea of all kinds. Well, mostly of the black and green kind, um, and there's just a couple of physical movements that I do that just they just get the blood flowing again. And there's one in particular that's just you put your arms out, like, I don't know if you can even see, but like against a wall, and your whole chest expands, and it just renews you. It's like
Ooh, I'm gonna try that.
it's so simple. It's just this, like, almost like you're pushing against a wall behind you, and you can do it against a wall, which of course then helps. But
I
yeah.
love that. I'm gonna try it. Have you ever tried Om chanting?
Yes, I do love that
You,
too.
it's supposed to make you lose weight, which is the only
Oh,
reason I tried it. They did a test, evidently. Yeah, 5 minutes a day, 2 times a day, because that's how you burn calories with your breath. And it evidently made the respiratory system stronger, so people were losing weight. But what I've noticed is I have crunchiness. I'm hoping that goes away now that I'm like fixing my health stuff. But I don't have a clear, because it vibrates, right? The theory is it vibrates from your diaphragm,
oh
then it
yes.
goes up, and I get up there, and it's not so gorgeous. But I think it could be good exercise. I've only done it 3 days. Have you done
Oh,
it for like a long time?
well, I started doing it in the 80s, in different ways, and with different disciplines. I'm a kind of a spiritual junkie. Like I just like to learn about any kind of,
Yeah,
belief
stuff.
system. Yeah, stuff. Um, and more of it is the things that really interest me are the philosophies around it. So Om to me is one of the most basic and organic kinds of practices. But I don't do it regularly. So now you're making me think. I
It's
mean,
so cool. I'll send you the link to the article. There were four
oh,
different
please.
breathing exercises that are supposed to make you.
Oh,
uh, I mean, I know I shouldn't care just about the aesthetic
no.
benefits. Obviously, the spiritual ones would be lovely as well.
But you'll get there. That's the beauty of this kind of thing, where it might start out being about, weight, let's say, but by the end of it, it's like it's about awakening and,
My voice. I'm
connect.
thinking if it's vibrating and I'm hearing the crackling, then maybe
Yeah.
eventually that'll get stronger and it won't crackle.
Yeah. The crackle is really interesting to me. Do you literally hear an actual
Yeah, because
crackling?
I have a hernia, and so I'm doing
Oh,
the Icora to like heal it, but I have a hernia, so that's turns
oh,
out what all the things have been. So
uh,
yeah,
well,
so I'm thinking that'll strengthen everything.
it will absolutely. And singing lessons might even, gentle.
Yeah, I tried that. You have to have an attention span.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you do. That's true. But even just singing the scales, like, a couple of times a day is also kind of, it also gets your brain a little more clear.
I
And
do the Nam-myoho Renge Kyo chant
you
before I
do.
record every day. I scroll Pinterest and I do the 15-minute Nam-myoho Renge Kyo while I'm
Oh,
scrolling Pinterest. Because
that's,
I figure Pinterest is feeding my soul, and then the
yeah,
Nam-myoho is like going to work out my voice.
your physical, and also, again, it's the vibrations of it will affect your emotions and your
Yeah. And
sense.
Pinterest is my altar.
Oh, I would love to talk to you another time about what you do with Pinterest, because I hear people talking about it, and I even am part of Pinterest, but I don't you know, aside from just pinning certain things that I really love to look at, I don't know the practical application.
Oh,
And a
stick
lot
with
of
me,
people,
friend. We'll
okay,
talk Pinterest and podcasts. Pinterest is shopping without spending the money.
wow, that's a great point. Yeah, I guess that's true. A lot of people I see put, you know, put certain furniture or artwork
Yeah,
on.
houses, Zoom backgrounds, clothes, food, recipes. You can change your
Yeah,
mood instantly. You can, if you look up anything, any childhood love that you ever had and put the word aesthetic after it, 8 million other people that love the same stuff you loved are on Pinterest. Yeah.
oh, that's so neat. Thank you. I look forward to hearing more and getting addicted to it.
I have one last question for you, Carol. I think I'm always in trouble with people like you who make me too comfortable, and then I end up talking and having to edit out all the Daniela talked over the
Oh,
guest.
no, now listen, I really want to just put a plug in for you because first of all, you're invaluable to this community. You've really provided something that's unique. And I love that you know, even the way you talk about, you know, your is it a parrot? You have a bird?
Oh, Vlad the Budgie.
Vlad the budgie. Just the personal touches that you bring, that's part of what draws people. I think it draws me anyway. So I think people don't want to just hear the person talking who's being interviewed. They want to hear a conversation. And so don't you dare cut off your own.
Because I think we'll learn best from Carol Monda, not by hearing instructional things, but by getting a moment with your energy so that we can all learn from each other's energy. I really think that we, like as an actor, you know, you follow the person down the street and try to mimic their
Yeah,
energy so that you can remember how they walk and hold themselves.
right.
That's what I think with
Yes.
these. So, okay, I've got a final question
Okay.
for the YouTube audience that's going to be watching this in the next 100 years or so. If you could leave them with one thing, just one thing you wanted them to take away from this call, if nothing else, a piece of advice, a favorite poem, a line of something, one thing, what would you want them to walk away with?
I guess I would want them to walk away with the idea that, as we've been talking about, it all really does start with the breath and it all ends with the breath. And that if you can keep connected to, you know, who you are in your natural metronome of, you know, breathing and heart beating, that that you will always be connected to your, well, not always, but you know, that's the most likely way to be connected to yourself. And that way you can connect to other people, I think, much more authentically and really, if you are also yourself kind of walking through the world in wonder and breath.
I love that. It's kind of like, I love the way you talk about the electricity and the metronome. It's like the steampunk spirituality.
Ooh,
It,
that's a great
it
idea.
is, isn't it? Like,
Because there are these steampunk
yeah,
images to all of us, right? And if you could fashion a sort of narrative around it, you know, an origin story for,
I think
um,
you've got something there.
that's a great thought, really.
The electricity, the metro. Carol Munda, this call was everything. I'm so glad that we made this happen, and
Thank you,
I'm
finally.
be prepared for me to stalk you and ask you back again someday.
Oh,
So,
please, anytime, anytime. This was really, I was nervous about this, and like from the second we got on the phone.
and by then you'll have your podcast and we can talk all about that.
That's right, exactly. In fact, I'll have you on as a guest.
I'll show up anytime. So thank you so much. And thank you to the gorgeous studio audience, as
All
always.
time with us.
And I'll send you the chat. Everyone had lovely things to say. So
Oh, thank
bye,
you.
you guys. Bye,
All
everyone.
right, thank you. Thank you so much.